Hey everybody, wanted to go over one of the most common asked about things on the radar right now, which is the Biden Down Payment Towards Equity Act of 2021. This is the $25,000 grant for basically a down payment assistance program that's catching a lot of attention, but it's also highly misunderstood in multiple ways. There's some race cards in here that are being kind of thrown out and misunderstood and misrepresented. So given that it's kind of a touchy subject, I did want to provide a little bit of clarity to it. I'm not going to go over the entire bill because that would just take too long, but I am going to go over a quick summary of it and kind of point out the cliff notes to it. Keep in mind, let me preface this first. This is a bill right now. The chances this gets passed as is are minimal. The fact that it'll get passed is probable because they're going to put it into another package. But it'll probably have some manicured pieces to it by the time it actually makes it through the Senate. So the bottom line is let's go ahead and go over the bill real quick. I'll look at the bullet points of it and just kind of go over the bullet points of it with everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen right now. At the end of the day, this is called the Down Payment Towards Equity Act of 2021. The sole purpose for this is to put funding together for down payments to spark home ownership in the underserved markets. When I say underserved markets, I mean people that are less likely to own a home. They're going to provide some assistance to make that home ownership a little more of a possibility. At the end of the day, this is put together by the feds. It is in the Biden administration. The grant formula down here is basically the way they figure you're going to qualify is if you are making less than the AMI, which is the area median income in your area. And by all means, if you want to Google your zip code and area median income, it'll tell you what that number is. You're allowed to make up to 120% of that number and actually up to 180% of that number in high balance areas like California. You can make up to 180% of the area median income and still get this grant. But if you are at 120% of that area median income or lower, then you have the opportunity to get a $20,000 grant as you are considered economically disadvantaged. Now, they go a little further on the use of the funds and who's eligible for it. Funds may be used solely to assist ineligible buyers, meaning economically disadvantaged buyers, which, by the way, every down payment assistance program is qualified through income. Most first-time homebuyer programs are qualified through income, meaning there's an income cap. If you make too much, you don't get the program. These programs are made for people who are lesser likely to buy a home because of money or because of a disadvantaged income situation. So this is no different. Basically, you can use the funds at closing for closing costs, payments to reduce the rate on the mortgage, meaning you can buy it down. You can pay for everything, closing costs, down payment, any repairs that might need to be made to the home, as long as it's, post or pre-closing, you can actually use it for all of the above. You can also use it in conjunction with other grants. So in other words, if you qualify for another grant, that's another set of free money, plus you get this money. So if you are a recipient who can qualify, then it would be highly advantageous for you to do so. So let's talk about who is a qualified recipient. Funds under this act can be provided for first-time homebuyers who meet the requirements and qualify as the act terms first-generation homebuyers. Now, these are not first-time homebuyers. A first-time homebuyer is defined as somebody who has not owned a home or had interest in a home in the last 3 years. You're automatically a first-time homebuyer again. This is first-generation homebuyers. So this means if your parents have ever owned a home in your lifetime, you don't qualify unless they lost said home to foreclosure and have not bought another since. So if that's your case, you're still in it. You're still in it. So If you are a first generation home buyer, meaning your parents have never owned a home or they lost it to foreclosure and have not bought since, that's qualification number one. Qualification number two, economically disadvantaged, meaning you make less than the area median income in your zip code or state. You can pitch the case however you want. Could be county. The third piece of this is socially disadvantaged. And you know, the way this bill describes socially disadvantaged is very specific. It says right here, the act defines socially disadvantaged individuals as those who have been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias because of their identity of a member or group without regard to their individual qualities. Economically disadvantaged, once again, someone who makes less than the area median income. And here's the way this works. If you're economically disadvantaged, you get $20,000 of this grant, as long as you're a first generation home buyer. So you meet those two qualities, you get $20,000. If you are also socially disadvantaged, which they go even further, an individual identifying as Black, Hispanic, Asian American, Native American, or any combination thereof will be presumed to meet this definition. So if you are Black, Hispanic, Asian American, Native American, or any combination thereof, you automatically qualify for the socially disadvantaged part of this, which is basically an extra $5,000. So if you're economically disadvantaged plus socially disadvantaged, you get the $25,000 towards the grant. The last piece or couple pieces of this, you do have to go through a home counseling. There's a lot of these things that are free. I mean, the class is semi-ridiculous when it comes to what do they go over and what do they ask you. It's some pretty ridiculous questions. I don't think that it necessarily prepares somebody anymore for homeownership. But the last part of this is it is a grant and it is forgiven 20% per year that you're in the home, or not in the home, in the loan. After 5 years, it's completely forgiven. If you sell the property after a couple years and you don't make what the grant would have given you, then you don't owe. But if you make money, you got to pay the grant back. So the bottom line is you can't use this for a tool for profit. The expectation is that you're going to be in the mortgage for 5 years. And at that point, the grant will be completely forgiven. Now, I really do hope that this kind of clears a lot of misnomers and misinformation out there about this. You know, and these days and times, you want to be as accurate as possible. Once again, going back to my initial comment, this bill is not passed. So a lot of these things could be changing or evolving as we go. And the bottom line is we won't really know until that point has gotten here. So hope this helps. Feel free to reach out to me anytime for any further questions. Thanks.